Hi, this is Joe Chambers. Welcome to Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage. Today's show is unique in the fact that this is the first time we ever did a tour of a factory. So we went to Gallagher Guitars in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. The new factory they moved the original factory from Wartrace, Tennessee to where I live in Murfreesboro. The new owner, David Mathis, met with us and we chatted about how he became the new owner and how they're doing now in their new factory. We start with where the wood comes in to the factory all the way through to the finished product. Hope you enjoyed. If you do, be sure to hit like, subscribe, and the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. Once again, the Gallagher Guitar Tour in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Here with the new owner, Dave Mathis. Dave purchased Gallagher Guitars a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, right?
Not quite 3 years.
Not quite 3 years. And moved it here, and he's got a great factory and a great story. So I'm just going to let Dave tell how he became the new owner of Gallagher Guitars.
Okay, that's a great setup. I had my first guitar I ever took lessons on was a Gallagher. It was my youth director. He had a 1967 G50. And so I've always known about Gallagher. I grew up in Manchester, not too far from here. So, I'd been down to the shop before. I was in a band. Who hasn't been in a band at some point? And so, I took the guys over to the shop. But I had been following it after moving back here several years ago. And I knew that things were slowing down for them. And then they announced in May of 2019 that they had officially closed. And it was just a sad thing. Online forums were talking about how sad it was that it was closing. And in a moment of weakness, I guess, I thought, well, I wonder if they would sell it and try to allow us to keep it going.
Well, I'm glad you did. Now, what was your background to take over, a guitar manufacturing company?
Yeah. Hardly anything that you would think would prepare me for it. That's not really true. I actually practiced as a clinical psychologist in my adult life. And
I thought you were analyzing me. I don't like that. Go ahead.
And so I still have a bit of a practice, part-time practice. I was already eyeing retirement, right? We began thinking about those things.
Right.
So I've had experience dealing with people and managing a small practice and those kinds of things. But there's so much to guitar building. And I thought I knew a little something about guitars. But if I hadn't located a key individual, and that's our lead luthier, Darren Goldman, I don't think I could have gone forward. Because I did a lot of research and interviewing, and his name kept coming back to me. And I sought him out, and with his collaboration, I made the decision to go ahead and purchase the company.
That was a pretty ballsy step, man, I had to say.
It was.
And so you decided to move here to Murfreesboro, found this location.
Right.
And what happened once you got here,
Well, to be fair about this, my first idea was try to preserve Gallagher and the history of that, their way of building guitars. So my first idea was just let's keep the shop going. But then it became apparent that in today's climate, I was going to have to expand it and bring it back out into the public more and really establish it for the future. And so it made sense to come to Murfreesboro. We love Wartrace, but it's not as easy for people to get to.
Right.
And so we wanted to be out around artists more and needed the space to do that. And so it made sense to move to Murfreesboro.
Well, I used to have guitar stores. Maybe you didn't know that. And the Gallagher guitar, the bluegrass pickers, actually most of them chose that over any of the other lines. And I'm talking Martin. I love Martin guitars, but I'm just saying some of the bluegrassers, they were like, I know for a fact that when they had the bluegrass contests they have around here, they have a real big one in a little town. I forgot the name of it.
Smithville?
Smithville, yeah.
Yes.
And the winners, they had a choice, what guitar you want, and 9 times out of 10, they wanted the Gallagher,
Right.
you know.
Right.
So, so you moved to this building, and then how do you go about getting the workforce?
Well, we've been fortunate, really very fortunate, I think, for the team that we pulled together. Everyone that's on staff here has gone to Lutheran school, except for one, Austin. He apprenticed 3 years with a fiddle maker. And so he had a good background, and he's adapted very quickly to building guitars. But all of them had previous training and experience prior to coming here.
So you didn't just build a factory. Where we are now is like your showcase room for talent, local talent, like songwriter
Right.
evenings and so forth. You have food and drinks and all that. How was it going before the COVID-19 hit?
We had 6 weeks of shows, and then COVID came. And I remember we had David Duval down on a Saturday evening, March 14th. And we were like, David, what do you think? Should we go ahead? And he was like, yeah, let's go ahead. And so we had, like 12 people.
Uh-huh.
And it became apparent that we were going to have to close down
But
for a while.
prior to that, it was doing well?
Oh, we'd had some great shows. It's just so much fun.
So you had a good response from the local people? That's great. And then you get cut off at the knees.
Right.
I'm kind of familiar with that. That's happened to me a few times. Happened with us with the museum
Right.
at the same time again with the COVID. And so, but you've been able to maintain building guitars during it and shipping them out and everything?
Well, you look for the silver lining, right? And for us, I mean, it's certainly been challenging, but it's allowed us to really focus on the most important part, which is building good quality guitars, making sure we really have things where we want them to be.
So it actually gave you a little time to really get your skills.
It did,
Top
to
drawer.
really hone in.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to get a shop up and going where you want it to be. So the extra time's been good for us in that sense, because we're building some great guitars.
Yeah, I know that for a fact. Yeah. But actually, would you mind showing?
Okay.
Now, did you say this one's like 6 days old or finished?
Well, let me see. The one behind you,
Well,
we
just
just
tell me about
finished
this one
6
then
days
first.
ago.
Yeah.
This is a G70. This one's customized a little bit because it's got the flame maple binding
It's gorgeous.
just really stands out. Wooden pick guard, which is also an extra. But the G70, JW started with the G50. That was his first, and that was a mahogany guitar. That was the guitar that Doc Watson first used. And then he added a rosewood, and that's the G70.
Is that a Sitka spruce top?
This is actually, usually it's Sitka, but again, this is a custom, and so this is an Engelmann.
Oh, England. That's great, man.
Yeah. So is it all right if I...
You want to give it a strum and
pull that in?
a little loud tune. It rings great, man. I don't know any guitars that are just perfectly in tune. What about Victoria? Would you? What's the story on this?
So, yeah, this guitar, this is a smaller size of the G70. So this is a GC70, a Grand Concert. A pyramid bridge because it's a smaller body and just that old style look along with the slotted headstock.
And that make a great songwriter guitar, man.
Yeah, again, the rosewood, we have a gentleman that supplies the rosewood for us, and you can see the book matching that we give such attention to. Just really shines that way. And this particular one does have a Sitka top that you would expect, to kind of go together. The features of this that I particularly like as a Grand Concert model is the pyramid. Darren is very particular about the pyramid.
Yeah.
People do different styles, but just the curve on this comes into the body of the bridge, and then the slotted headstock.
I love that, man. That's great. Gorgeous guitar.
Yeah.
More importantly, phenomenal sounding.
It is, and it's a good finger style.
And that's so good.
and it just keeps on ringing.
Yeah, it's great.
Again, this is only 6 days old, so give it a little time to open up a little bit.
Now, what kind of lacquer or spray are you putting on it?
We use
That's
nitrocellulose
great, man.
lacquer, right? We just,
I never could warm up to that, whatever it was.
The
you know,
polyester.
no, it
Yeah.
stuck to you, and it didn't let the guitar ring properly, you know.
right.
And this will
It's
age out.
durable.
It's
That's-
durable, but so is steel. I mean, but this will age out. That nitrocellulose
Yes.
just is gorgeous, and it
Right.
just makes it sound better and better.
So
Well, that's great.
really proud of what we're doing here.
So, and you've had the orders. Have you noticed the orders picking up? I noticed my friends at Gibson and Fender have told me that, believe it or not, that this has been the best year for guitars ever because people didn't have anything else to do. And they,
Right.
they always wanted one. This is the time to buy it. Are you feeling some of that here?
We are. Part of the challenge again was just as we're getting ready to get back out into the public eye, everything slowed down.
Mm-hmm.
And so the festivals that we were going to and all those things, got canceled. So this year we're already seeing some response that the word's getting out. People are becoming aware of us being down here and the guitars that we're building. And so we've fulfilled several orders recently and got some special orders, individual orders coming in.
Also, I wanted to ask you, I've got some friends that, have property, farms and so forth, and they're good artists as well. When a tornado or something comes through, like it did years
Right.
ago, and Gibson made all those Andrew Jackson guitars from the wood,
Right.
and they were hugely popular. Are you guys going to offer people, could they call you up and go, hey, look, I've got a piece of wood that was on my granddad's farm, and it's been in my family, and we had to cut it down, or a storm knocked it
Right.
down. Could you make somebody a guitar?
We certainly can. We have done that. And it does make for a special guitar. We recently built a guitar out of cherry wood. It was a tree that had fallen and been laying there for a while and we were about to burn it up. And he asked if he could have it, and he had it cut up in pieces that he could give to us. Then we sawed in a way that we could build a guitar from it. So we can do that.
And is there any particular kind of wood that you wouldn't use?
You can build a guitar about out of anything. You don't typically think about using a hardwood like oak, for example.
Or pine?
We're building a guitar right now out of hedge apple.
Really?
Osage orange or Bodoc it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, very unique.
Yes.
You were telling me earlier that JW was a furniture maker, so
Right.
everything made it, like he built it to be sturdy, right?
He built it to last. It was really solid in construction. That also resulted in a guitar that felt kind of heavy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so one of the things that we've worked toward is to stay true to the tradition while at the same time making the guitar lighter.
Well, doesn't that makes it sound better too? I mean, I think one of the things that Taylor did was cut back when they were getting going. Everybody was talking about how thin the tops were and
Right.
how much they would ring, and sound rich because they flexed really nicely.
Yeah, there's a lot of different features to that. We're doing audio testing that helps make decisions about the thickness of the top and also how we scallop the bracing to add to the voicing of it.
Well, those you'll show us that when we get in the
Yeah,
factory.
I can show you some of that.
All right. Well, matter of fact, why don't we just cut loose and head on back to the factory and let you show everybody how you make these incredible instruments.
That'd be great.
We'll be right back.
Hey Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum Backstage fans, check out our new backstage gear. From t-shirts to coffee mugs, we've got you covered. Not yet a fan? Check out our YouTube channel and enjoy some intimate conversations with the world's best musicians.
Dave, so what do we have here, man?
Well, one of the things that there are many skills to building guitars, and one of the contributions I'm trying to make is I've learned how to do the inlay work for us. They've been outsourcing, we outsourced a little while, but that you don't have the same control over it. So if you make a mistake, you learn from it, you get better at it.
Yeah.
So we brought it in-house. So I'll show you a couple of things. I just did this last week. Doc Watson gave us his signature to use on the Doc Watson signature guitar. And every time I inlay this mother of pearl shell with his signature, it's like chills.
Yeah.
because of the history it represents. And
Right.
I'm very aware of what we're doing here about preserving that history. Nobody else made the Doc Watson signature but Gallagher.
Right.
And so, we're preserving that.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm really excited about is that we're building, as far as I know, the first jumbo guitar that Gallagher's built. And when you think of jumbo,
Like a J200 kind of a style.
yes, like a J200, that's what you think of when you think of a jumbo. So we're doing it. The particular one we're doing this time is a bird's eye maple, and it's gorgeous already. But we had to think about what kind of fretboard. So we took the shape of the French curve that's unique to Gallagher on our headstock, yes, and we used that as part of the inlay to
Very
create
creative.
our own pattern.
Very creative.
This wood has already been prepped, that we know the moisture level is where it needs to be, so we can bring it into this room and keep it fairly low humidity before we start working with it in the shop. So we have different types of wood. You mentioned Sitka. It's just kind of a standard, especially for bluegrass guitars. So we have Sitka. We have some Engelmann spruce, some cedar. We're particularly excited. We've already been building with this. We're very happy with it. This is often referred to as Adirondack. You think of Adirondack spruce. But this red spruce comes from Tennessee.
Really?
It comes from the East Tennessee area. And we're really happy with the quality, the stiffness of it. When you have stiff wood like that, you can thin it.
Yeah.
So that you can get more vibration out of your top and
Right.
still be structurally sound.
Yeah.
So we're just really happy with this. JW, when he started building guitars, he needed to build the equipment to build the guitars. And so he designed and built the equipment that he needed, much of the equipment.
He made this?
He designed and built this himself.
Wow.
The machine skills. So we use this for joining, gluing the tops and the backs. Where he designed it where it can sit in here, a little spring pressure to hold it in place, and then it tightens down to force those together to really bond them. And you do one, and then you just move on to the next one.
So how many, I didn't count them.
I think it's 10.
Yeah. It's great. I mean, I like how you just use like a,
It doesn't
You get
have
this
to be
at a hardware
complicated.
store, you know?
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sure he did.
yeah, that's great.
So, Joe, I was going to tell you about the side bending machine, and actually Austin is going to show us how it's used. Now you can go buy equipment to bend sides. You can get electronic heating blankets where you can set the dial to the right temperature and all that. JW built one, and for the heat, to produce the heat, he used hot water heater elements underneath it.
Right.
And that's what we still use today.
So we've got our sides here to thickness. These are at about 90 thousandths of an inch. So we're gonna put them in this water bath for about 2 seconds. Just get them fully immersed in water. And what the water does is basically just to keep the wood from burning. A lot of people think that the water actually helps with the bending, but it's the heat that does all the bending. We'll take them out of there.
As he's doing that, again, when we stop and think about JW having built this equipment, and Don was part of this process of building this equipment, and he's talked about the tweaking they had to do to finally get it right, and that the guitars that we're building today still have the fingerprints of JW and Don on every guitar because of the equipment that we're using and their way of doing things.
See the water evaporating off the sides.
And you have to go slow because there's a certain sound you don't want to hear. The cracking of wood.
Got a few more turns left.
Now, how long do you have to leave it? How long do you have to leave it in this machine?
I usually leave it about 10 minutes.
That's all.
Yep. Just as long as all the water's evaporated, it should be good.
It'll hold its shape.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That one sounded like a success.
I think it was.
Yes.
Dave, where are we now, man?
So one of the most important things about an acoustic guitar is how it sounds. I mean, you can make it look really pretty, have fancy inlay and all that, but it's got to sound right. And getting the top properly structured to support the strings while also allowing the wood to move is where some of the magic is.
Right. Like a paper and a speaker, right?
Yes. So it's got to be able to move and yet be able to be structurally sound. We do that with the bracing, but if you over brace, you're going to kill the sound.
Right.
So there's different things that we do about designing the bracing pattern. This is the traditional Martin X brace, and we've added an extra brace for this full body guitar. Austin works in this area. He prepares the brace material, lays it out, glues it in, and I thought it'd be interesting to watch the use of this go-bar deck and let Austin demonstrate how bracing is glued in.
Have at it, Austin.
So it's still pretty old school here. It's called the go-bar deck, and all it is a flexible stick that we put in here and just wedge it into place, and that holds the brace in place while the glue dries. A lot of companies have vacuum presses and all kinds of different ways to do it, but I mean this works just about as good as any. And let the glue dry for a couple of hours, and then you're good to pull it out. So we'll put bars on all of these braces.
One thing I'll comment on, it's not intentional, but you can see patterns emerge sometimes that are artistic in their own way.
So that's about what it'll look like.
How long does it take for it to dry?
Usually a couple hours.
So, Austin, Dave, what do we have? Where are we at now?
I think I'll let Austin talk about this. This is his area that he works in.
Okay, Austin.
Yeah, so when it's in this state, we've got our sides bent like we were doing over there. We've got
this is what happens after you take it out of the
right.
the other press, right?
Yep, that's right. So after it comes out of the bender, we'll mark our center line, which we've got here on our form. We'll cut it square, glue our blocks in. So that's the next step, and then we'll radius it. So we have a sander on the other side of the shop that it's a big potter's wheel that's been converted. It's got sandpaper on it at different radiuses for tops and backs. Put it on there, it sands the radius in, and then what we'll do is glue our kerfing in with just little spring clamps. So after that's done, we'll radius it one more time to flush the kerfing up.
Is this called the kerfing here?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And all that is to give the top and back more gluing surface, because if we tried to glue it just to the side, it would probably come apart. Okay, so after it's to this step, what we'll do is we'll put our back on, just like we braced it up, just like the top. We'll put our back on, line up our center lines. This is an all mahogany guitar, so it doesn't have a seam strip down the back. Line up our center lines, flip it over. It's at this point, we mark our braces, where our braces are, mark it on both sides, where our blocks are, and we can take it off. So I've already marked it on here, and we'll cut that out, cut our mark off, and then our marks on our kerfing, we'll also cut those out. So I've already notched this. We'll come back with a Dremel with an attachment about like this one, and just Dremel those little pieces out, and then the back will just fit on it like a glove.
Dave, what are we looking at?
Well, what we're about to talk about is something that is really important to our overall process. It's another way in which we're bringing some new technology to work with this old school process. So we're doing some audio testing at different stages on the guitars to make decisions about how thick the top wood may need to be thickness to. And the thing is, rather than just do 120 thousandths every time, we're testing on each piece of wood to determine what that piece of wood needs. The next stage, Austin's going to do a demonstration about how we use that technology in a similar fashion to understand what this top needs once it's been braced up, to help make decisions about how to work with the bracing.
Sure, so we've got the top braced up here. We've got our braces glued on, we've done our carving. So now what we're going to do, we're going to inject a frequency into it to see what the resonant frequency of this top is. We'll put some coffee grounds on here, the old decaf coffee, because that's the only good use for it. So, we got a tone generator here in our speaker. We'll start it out, see how it's going. We'll lower that frequency, it looks like it's lower. Getting closer. So whenever the coffee grounds really jump around and start making a shape, you'll know that's the frequency. Okay, so there it is. So that's 210 hertz.
So now, how does this help you shape the top?
So what we want is almost a complete circle, or at least a completed pattern. The more like a circle it is, the more like a speaker it acts. We can take a little more off of this brace, or vice versa. If it's open down here, we can try to take more off of these braces. It's almost impossible until the top is actually glued on the sides to get a connected circle. It can be done, but it has to be just a really, really good piece of wood, or just kind of by fate. But after it's glued on, it'll connect the circle, and it'll act like a speaker and pump air.
Where are we now?
This is the area where the guitars are ready for finishing. They're in kind of the final stage of getting everything prepared to go into finish. And I'd like to show you a couple that we're working on. I mentioned that jumbo guitar.
Oh yeah, that's gorgeous.
And that bird's eye
how pretty is that?
maple that we're working with. And bird's eye is unique anyway in terms of maple.
Right.
But this particular bird's eye is just three-dimensional.
Yeah.
And when you put a little
It's gonna
lacquer
jump,
on that,
yeah.
it's just going to jump out.
Yeah.
And this is a custom order.
Whoa.
He won't mind me showing you this and all. This is koa,
Oh yeah.
Hawaiian wood,
Gorgeous,
right?
man.
And again, the figuring on this, where the bridge is going to sit right here below
Yeah.
that.
Okay, so again, what station are we at now?
So this is our neck area. There's various things that we do here, from finishing some of the inlay work, putting it to the neck itself. I showed you the koa guitar earlier.
Right.
This is a piece of koa that's been cut down that we're now carving into a neck for this customer, and he wanted a very specific width for his neck, and so we took the measurements and going to build the profile just like he wants it. And Teddy is actually working on a neck that, again, is a custom order neck where he wanted a certain profile, and so
Can we go see Teddy?
Teddy can talk to you about that.
Teddy. Hey man. So like, what you got going on here?
This is a custom neck we're doing for somebody, and they went through our guitars and they chose this particular guitar they liked the shape of, and that one was pretty close to our general Doc Watson spec, which is based off of some of our old, when we got the company, we got a lot of the old templates and so forth.
Right.
So we still do a lot of the same shapes as they did for a long time. But right now this neck has been roughed in, diamond volute has been carved.
Now, did you do all this?
I did not. The shop manager did a portion of it, and so sometimes, a lot of times he will do the diamond volute by hand.
Yeah.
He's really specialized in a lot of hand work.
Yeah, I love that, dude. That's great.
Yep. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to take it down to thickness a little bit before I start actually roughing in the shape here with the template. And this is one of our templates here. And like I said, this may look new, but it's based off an old template that we got when we got the company. So. So we have to flush up the sides and basically shape the mahogany to the head cap. And it has to be done very carefully to not thin out the binding.
So Dave, what do we have here, man?
So Courtney is doing some finish sanding work, and it may sound like it's a simple thing just to sand a guitar, but it's far from simple. There's a lot of technique and expertise involved, and when we talk about finish sanding, we're getting it to the point to where it's ready to go into finish.
Right.
And so Courtney is working on this, we call it the Tennessee guitar because it's made out of Tennessee wood. So Courtney, you can demonstrate some of that if you want to.
Yes, sir. So right now what I'm doing is basically trying to find the gaps and dents or scratches or whatever. Trying to get everything perfect as possible for it, so the paint can go well. See, now I put it in the light, and you just try to examine the body.
Excellent. Quality control.
Yes, sir. See that right there?
Uh-huh.
That's the type of stuff I'm looking for.
And what does that tell you when you see that?
Basically, I gotta fill it up and make it disappear.
So Dave, this process, who do we have here?
So this is Hunter, and Hunter does various jobs like the other luthiers as well. One of the things he helps with is finish sanding, and we saw the guitar that had already had finish applied to it. It was sitting there curing.
Right.
This guitar has been brought out of that, has been wet sanded, and now he's buffing it out.
Yeah, so we wet sand the guitars, start with 800 to level them out, then take them up to 1,000, and then we're able to take them up. We got 3 different wheels. That's our red wheel over there, so that's the roughest grit we start at. So I try to get all my wet sanding scratches out with that one, make sure everything's consistent. I'm checking this in the light pretty constantly, looking for all my scratches and stuff, and then once I'm good there, I'll switch up to this pink wheel. And that's kind of like the medium grip one, and then we've got a white wheel over there that I'll chuck up over there.
Can you give us a hit on the wheel?
Yeah. Pretty much just working it on the wheel until you get all your scratches consistent, and you slowly just work it up into grits. Get that high polish. Yeah. So this is still pretty low gloss for what it'll end up being after we hit it on the white wheel. But yeah.
I love that. That's great. Okay, Dave, what area are we at now?
Well, this is really our last station. This is where the guitar is going to come together, where the bridge has already been registered, but it's going to be glued on to the guitar. The neck is going to be placed and glued on. Then the saddle, the nut, the strings, and Hunter oversees this area.
Yeah, so like David was saying, after I get them all buffed out, and me and Teddy, we both QC them, just make sure nothing slipped by either one of us. I'll peel the tape off slowly, make sure none of the lacquer's separating anywhere, and then I'll start doing the final neck set to the bridge. So the neck gets glued on before the bridge, but the bridge is already registered. So yeah, I glued this one up earlier this morning, and they usually need at least 4 hours. Sometimes if I do it at the end of the day, I'll let it sit overnight just to be on the safe side. Yeah, that's pretty much to it. So tomorrow I'll be setting this thing up, fit the bridge pins, do the tuners, do all the fret work for it, carve the nut, carve the saddle, do the final setup on it, make sure everything's clean, good to go, make sure the inside's all good, stick the label in there, make the pick guard, kind of all the final stuff to it.
And then once the string's on, we all gather around for the ritual of hearing that particular guitar for the first time.
Yeah, it sounds
It's
like
always
a lot of
fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dave, man, thank you, and thank all the guys here for spending time this afternoon with us. And if I were you and you leave these guitars, I'd put an order in now, because it's just going to get, like they were saying, crazier. And you're not going to find, I don't believe, a better quality guitar than what you just saw made from start to finish. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching Musicians Hall of Fame Backstage.